The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. Very exciting episode for you all today. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am likewise thrilled for this episode because we have a really exciting guest coming up in the second half. In the first half, however, lots of stuff happened over the past week that we have not had a chance to cover yet. We had the NBA draft. It was not the most exciting night for Suns fans, but something happened.
It was a long night for Suns fans.
It was a very long night. I tried my hardest out here on the East Coast to stay up until the Suns made their pick. I did not make it. I went to bed past midnight, and they were still in the early second round. So that was brutal. But the NBA draft happened. We will talk about that. And, of course, there are a bunch of updates on the never-ending DeAndre Ayton situation that, we get to talk about every single week. So let's start there. Let's get right into it.
I'll just plug it real quick. In the second half, Joe House of The Ringer is joining us, who is a Washington Wizards fan, to talk about the Bradley Beal experience. We learn about what that's going to be like for Suns fans and what his opinion of it is. So make sure to stick around for that second half. It was very kind of him to join us. But yes, no matter what we plan for this podcast, we end up talking about DeAndre Ayton. Is that just what it's going to be until this is decided, right?
Yep.
Because if he stays on the team, it's still going to be that even beyond that. But if he ends up being traded, then I guess that's the end of that. But for now, we have reports by Gambo and reports by Chris Haynes that the Suns plan on keeping DeAndre Ayton. Now, first thing I want to ask you, do you think, based on those reports, that the Suns actually plan on keeping DeAndre Ayton?
I believe Gambo. I have a tendency to believe Gambo more than I believe Haynes. Haynes does not have a very good track record with the Suns.
Haynes reporting it
recently
made it seem less likely that the Suns
Sure, I've heard some other people say that as well, and that's believable to me. But of course, with Gambo, there's the extra factor of, is Gambo still kind of working as the
He's
inside,
been right all summer.
The inside track for the FO that's trying to secretly pump up Ayton's trade value. And I don't know, man. At this point, like, I want to believe that. But I'm also starting to approach a point where I'm thinking to myself, maybe we do have to accept that DeAndre Ayton will be on the team and we make the most of it in whatever way we can. And look, I'm really struggling with that proposition in a lot of ways. I had what some people could call a meltdown on Twitter the other day when I basically just was honest about it and said that I'm lower on the Suns championship odds in a reality where they are unable to move DeAndre Ayton for depth, just because I'm very uncomfortable with betting on a guy, and I know you agree with me on this. I don't know if you agree with me on all of it, but very uncomfortable with betting on this guy to give a shit in the playoffs when that's been his biggest issue in the past 2 years. Just the motor being the number one question, the consistent effort.
The Tesla battery.
I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable with all of it. I'm not looking forward to it. I think you nailed it with your tweet the other day, by the way. That was just the shot of Succession. That's just Tom and Shiv in the limo driving away from the final episode of Succession. No major spoilers there, just a shot of the two of them, and just kind of like, the Suns and DeAndre Ayton, I can't imagine they're thrilled about this partnership anymore.
It's a loveless marriage.
It is a loveless marriage. I can't imagine that either side is thrilled. We can't overlook the possibility that DeAndre Ayton has this no-trade clause for another 2 weeks. Maybe he's rejected something already behind the scenes. I don't know. But it's we do have to prepare for the possibility that he's going to be back. And
well,
talk
a couple things
about that possibility and how we could make the most of it.
A couple dates to mention that are relevant to this conversation. One, July 1st. Why July 1st? Well, it's free agency for one, but two, it's the beginning of the next CBA. The beginning of the next CBA signifies that based on where the Suns are projected to be cap-wise, that they can't take back as much in a DeAndre Ayton trade. So if they want to take back additional salary, so more than what DeAndre Ayton makes, they have to make a trade before July 1st. Second date that's relevant, July 13th. That's the day that DeAndre Ayton's offer sheet was signed with the Phoenix Suns, until that date, he can actually reject a trade, and also he can't be traded to the Pacers until after that date. So these are important dates for the Suns. So now we're talking about DeAndre and whether or not we believe the reports. So that's a different conversation. Now,
correct me if I'm wrong. For the first date, I just want to make sure it's it used to be 125% under the old CBA with the salary matching rules. Now it goes down to 110%. Is that the number? Okay.
Yes.
That's
this
significant.
This is all assuming the CBA is written the way that we expect it to be, because it's not done yet.
Sure, but that's significant because if Ayton, under the old CBA, if Ayton has a salary of $32 million or whatever, and you can take back up to 125% of that salary, that leaves you a cushion of like $6 or $7 million. That's a significant amount. Whereas 110%, you have to be pretty precise.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just keep that in mind, that things could move pretty fast if they work something out before July 1st that DeAndre Ayton okays. They could make that trade before July 1st, or they could wait until he has no veto leverage and they can make a trade after that. Or they keep him, right? That's the other option. And all of the arguments for keeping him is that he was bad last year because he was mad at Monty Williams and Monty Williams was mad at him. Is that how we're summarizing it, right?
Yeah, and that
a personal thing.
And that Frank Vogel is going to come in and look, I know what his reputation is. I respect Frank Vogel as a defensive coach. I think largely he was the right hire in a number of ways, but also, there's this weird coping argument of Frank Vogel is going to come in and wave a magic wand and suddenly DeAndre Ayton's going to give a shit, which I don't get it. I'm just going to be honest. I don't get that at all. I hope it's true.
Let me just say
for the sake of us. I hope it's true.
Because here's my problem with all of that. What's to say it doesn't happen again with DeAndre Ayton and Frank Vogel? What's to say that they all of a sudden don't have a... What's the excuse then? What happens if Vogel gets on Ayton in a way that Ayton doesn't like right before the playoffs? What happens then? There's two sides to it. Monty is only one party in this. Ayton is the other one. And we're focusing on one without focusing on the other. Because I just don't understand that. Do the Suns have to walk on eggshells with DeAndre Ayton to ensure that every possible thing is just right to him to make sure that he plays perfectly in every single game? Is that what we're looking at here? Because it didn't work with the previous coach? I don't really understand that. Personally, there is a possibility that he loses all motivation to play and plays badly. That's what we're factoring into this, because that happened with the previous coach. That means it could happen again in the future. And if we're hedging all our bets into putting it all in that basket there and saying that, okay, there is that possibility, but Frank Vogel will fix it all, that's not Frank Vogel's job. He's the head coach of an NBA team. His job is not to baby a single player on this team.
That really is what it is. That really is what it is. It's a perfect word. Babying. I think so many people in this fan base baby the guy in a way that after 5 years, I just don't understand anymore. It's not that I hate the concept. Like, look, if DeAndre Ayton's going to be here, if the trade value isn't there, the trade value isn't there. I get it. John Collins today, a few hours before recording this, just got traded for a bag of peanuts. He got traded for Rudy Gay, who, by the way, I loved Rudy Gay at the time.
No, not that guy.
I loved Rudy Gay at the time that he signed that contract with Utah, and then he ended up being totally washed. He's got nothing left. They got Rudy Gay and a second-round pick. You can quibble with the idea that John Collins and DeAndre Ayton have the same trade value if you want. Maybe they don't. Maybe Ayton's more valuable. I don't know. To me, both of them are flawed players who have been in the trade machine cycling around. In Collins' case, it's been 3 years. For Ayton, it's been over a year, and it's going to be every single game. It's going to extend every single game that he plays this year. I don't know.
Devin Booker had 5 coaches, now 6, and we never once had to question his effort. Never. Just never happened.
The other big thing to me is so a lot of people are saying, well, if Ayton doesn't have the trade value right now, if his trade value is at a low point, and I don't necessarily agree that it is, but I'll agree with them for the sake of argument. Let's say that his trade value is at a low point. Well, why wouldn't you just want to keep him and then reform that trade value?
And then trade him at the deadline?
But the problem
with that... And then whoever the Suns gets back rolls their ankle and plays 8 games with the Suns. They have to go into the playoffs with no chemistry. Yeah, I can see why that's a problem.
So it's obviously a problem because we don't want to repeat the same mistakes of last year of I would actually like to gain some chemistry, some rapport between our guys this year. But the other reason that that's a problem to me, the other reason that I'm trying to roll it around in my head and it just doesn't make a lot of sense, is because what team The biggest issue with DeAndre Ayton that teams are looking at least if I were a GM, is, again, the motor issue. If he's not going to come prepared in the playoffs, the most important games, the most important series, with the right motor, and going to do the basic things like play defense and box out for a contender, if he's not going to do that, and he didn't do that the past 2 years in a row, why are teams going to buy? Like, he's not going to show us his ability to be a playoff riser between now and February. He needs to prove it in the playoffs. Nothing that he could do between now and February when the trade deadline is. What's he going to do between now and February? He's going to average 14. He's going to average 14 points and 9 rebounds per game on a Frank Vogel team. And what's that going to do for his trade value? It's not going to raise his trade value to anyone.
The best thing for his trade value right now is the belief that it was Monty Williams' fault. And if he plays for Vogel and still doesn't meet whatever expectations that people have for him, that leverage is now gone as well. Because now Frank Vogel couldn't get it out of him either.
It's the now, last thing he has left.
If he plays well, the question will always be there about whether or not he could do it in the playoffs and how consistently he can do it for the rest of the season. The trade deadline is not going to solve that. I completely agree. What is DeAndre Ayton? Let's just really cover this real quick. DeAndre Ayton is, one, an excellent finisher. One of the best finishers at the rim in the NBA.
Even in spite of the fact that people get frustrated by the not dunking and whatever, the numbers
still great.
The numbers bear it out. The numbers bear it out objectively. He is a great finisher. Wish he got to the line a little bit more. That's okay.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. We'll cover that. 2, he's an inconsistent defender who is sometimes good, rarely great, but sometimes great, and sometimes awful, like plain awful. He's an inconsistent rebounder. Sometimes a really great rebounder, sometimes just watches the ball dribble over to somebody else without boxing out, right? He played one really great playoffs in 2021 when he was a free agent. Suns did not extend him when he was extension eligible. He had the 2022 playoffs, which was one really good series and then one awful series, right? Those were 2 things that happened in the 2022 playoffs, where it included him refusing to enter a game at home where the Suns were getting killed in front of home fans, just refusing to go into the game, probably assuming he would no longer be on the team, right? That was the idea there. He also was a player who was suspended for a banned substance in his second season in the NBA. He has good qualities. He has bad qualities, but at his best, he is all of those things. He's not just one. He's not just the good finisher. He's not just the sometimes good defender. He's also the inconsistent rebounder. He's also the inconsistent defender. He's all of those things together. Now, when you're factoring all of that into whether or not DeAndre Ayton can be the piece that solves issues for the Suns, you have to factor it all in, because all of those things I could read off of his scouting report when he was drafted to the NBA. They are not new problems. These are problems that have existed since he was in college. I don't understand why the problems that have existed since he was college are now being blamed on a coach. I just don't get it. I'm sorry to rant here, Sam.
No, I don't get it either. I do not get it. But
and here's why it bothers me. Sure. This is the Suns' best chance for an NBA title ever.
Yes, that is why it bothers me too.
This is it. This is the chance.
And it's not
this season.
But to be clear, it's not that we don't think the Suns can't win a championship with DeAndre Ayton and these 3 guys. Of course they can. They're going to go into the season. If they keep Ayton, they're going to go into this season at worst with like the 3rd best odds at a championship, probably by the books. Of course they can win a championship. We're just talking about maximizing their odds, and I just feel a lot more comfortable if this partnership were to end. But if the trade value is not there, the trade value is not there. If it's going to be the equivalent of
really
a Rudy Gay,
Rudy Gobert, the second round pick is not it. Yeah,
there's an idea. There's an idea.
Yeah,
we talked about all of our Ayton moves, and we were very consistent in our belief that we want at least 2 playoff rotation players back for this one guy. In some instances, even like 3, potentially a max of 3, but at least 2. And if you're getting the equivalent of Rudy Gay and a second round pick, and obviously it's not going to be that because the Suns, it would need to be salary matched and everything. But
I'll ask you this too.
That just wouldn't work.
For those who think that Vogel will use Ayton differently, please tell me what that means. Or is it just the pep talks on the bench will be nicer? Is that what it is? Like, is it just how he talks to him? Because on the court, I'm talking about how will he be used differently? That's really what I'm curious about, because Ayton grades out as a horrible perimeter defender and a pretty good drop defender, meaning that we're going to use him in the drop all the time in order to properly maximize him. That's what Monty Williams did. How will he be used differently defensively in order to maximize him than what Monty did? Because I don't really see a way. I think Monty was doing all the right things with him defensively, and it was just about whether he was mentally there on a night-to-night basis. And what stops that from happening? Pep talks on the sidelines, I guess. I don't get it. We'll see what happens. I think look, I am less confident they will trade him now, but I am not convinced they won't trade him. Just today, Chris Haynes, apparently on a podcast, talked about Toronto and the Pacers, asking about DeAndre Ayton. There was also a recent report that the Mavs made an offer to the Suns for DeAndre Ayton that the Suns didn't like.
Oh, that the Suns didn't like? Please, just give us Tim Hardaway, Josh Green, and whatever.
Well, at that time,
it's not that hard. I would take that. I would take that in an instant. It would be a little funny, though, I will admit. It would be a little funny to have Booker, Beal, and Tim Hardaway now. But even so, I would still take it.
Yeah, me too.
Depth is depth.
Yeah, you just don't play campaign anymore, basically. That's where we're at. These guys all play point guard. Any other thoughts on that? We've talked that to death, I'm sure, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you guys will get our update from it next week, I guess.
Yeah, or as soon as he just traded, if it does happen.
I'm prepared for the possibility. Everyone knows, I think, now where I feel on DeAndre Ayton, and I can tell some people have been like, it's really funny where the Suns fan base falls. Like, I have some people privately thanking me via DMs as if I'm like, as if we exist under some totalitarian.
A whistleblower?
Yeah, as if we exist under some like completely authoritarian regime, being like, thank you for the bravery of saying what finally you've said what we've all been. And then I have other people, obviously, in my reply, and this is fine, but I have other people in my replies calling me a fucking idiot or whatever. And it's just, it's crazy that after 5 years, we're still in this total Civil War attitude. That's another reason that I hope we can put it to bed soon. But if he is on the team, I am still rooting for him, and I hope that he contributes to great basketball, and I hope the Suns win a championship. And I will do my best to an extent to hold my tongue when he fucks up, and he will fuck up often, and sometimes I will point it out, and people will tell me to go fuck myself. But Jesus Christ, man.
Well, the other part of that is you can't celebrate when he has 3 good regular season games to start the season. You just can't do that. You have to understand that consistency is the issue. Now, I'm just not the kind of person that looks at DeAndre and playing good one season and bad the next as a positive. I'm not going to do it that way. I don't think there are good enough reasons, scheme-wise, system-wise, basketball court-wise, to justify that. I can't do it. The Suns picked a player in the draft.
Yes.
Yeah, 52nd pick. It was a long night. I watched every second of that draft.
They didn't trade it.
It was a long night.
They didn't
trade it.
They
even
didn't trade.
If ESPN said that they did during the broadcast.
Yes. Then
it
look,
wasn't true.
They didn't trade up either, which is obviously the ideal of what we were hoping for, but that's okay. They didn't have a lot of cash to work with, especially after the Beal move. They moved a few million in cash considerations in that move. So just the fact that the Suns actually used their second-round pick, which we haven't had a chance to talk about yet, that's why we're talking about it now, even though it's a few days later. I'm thrilled, Mike. Are you thrilled? We didn't sell it for cash. Yeah. We have a prospect, an actual human prospect with a beating heart on the Phoenix Suns. This is big news for us. It's a big change. 52nd
overall, they picked Toumani Camara, who is a 23-year-old Belgian basketball player, somebody from Brussels, Belgium, who played most recently on Dayton. And, a late pick for the Suns, so, like, the level of optimism, the level of excitement, I think has been, like, the right level. People are saying he can help right away this season. That's just, that's just bait to get retweeted. That's not real. I think people have pretty solid expectations around what a 52nd overall pick is.
You never know. Herb Jones helped as a rookie.
You never know.
I want to rile up the people a little bit. But no, I think we talked about it on our episode with Damon, that like 5% of picks, I think was the stat.
Yeah.
In like the 40 to 60 range become NBA starters
NBA
one day.
players, starters.
Some of them more of them become rotation players. But so I think that's what the not even the expectation, that's what the hope is with Toumani Camara. He has skills, tangible skills. We hope that he can become one day a rotation player to be the long-term starting wing next to KD or whatever, or next to even Beal or Booker. Yeah, obviously that's not the expectation.
Right, of course. But he's not young. He has a man's body, for example. He's huge, he's strong, he's tall, he's 6'8", has very long arms, and looks like an NBA player. And his main skill is defense, and it's exactly what I wanted out of the draft. As when we talked to Damon, you can go back and listen. I didn't know his name, never heard of him before, right before the draft, and I think a lot of Suns players probably were Googling him that day, which tends to happen when you're picking late in the draft. There's a lot of colleges in the United States, Sam, so it's hard to keep up with all of these players, but Toumani is a defensive player who may be able to put it together offensively. So what we need to know from him is whether or not he can put together some level of offense and whether or not the defense translates to the NBA. If he can do anything offensively and the defense translate like we hope it does, there's a chance that he plays, minutes off the bench this season. If not, you have time to. We don't have the G League team, but we have two-way slots, and we will probably have a G League team as early as next year.
Yeah, so at some point during assuming he signed, I don't think he signed his contract yet officially, but assuming
he still could be traded technically.
Sure, assuming he does sign a 2-year contract with the Suns, which is like the standard that those second-round picks get, may be eligible for the G League next year if he still needs it. That's right. Ishbia has every intention of bringing the G League back to the Phoenix area, so that is a great sign.
So you have time. You can develop him. You can build him up into the player that you need in your system. And look, we know what Vogel likes. He likes guys who put a lot of effort in defensively. So, it's possible for players like that who understand their role, understand how to be in the NBA. And not that they're, I think this is the big issue with Darius Bazley, actually, is Baze doesn't fully understand what he is in the NBA and wants to be more than that. And if Baze fully embraced the role that the Suns would need him to play, he probably would have played more minutes last season. And I think for Toumani, who's picked 52nd, whereas Baze was, I believe, a first-round pick, I think there is probably going to be more of an understanding of that role and a willingness to accept it. And we'll see if he ends up doing that, because having young prospects is fun. It's fun to watch them and see what they turn into in the NBA. So I hope he's somebody who ends up being good enough to get minutes for the Suns this season.
Yeah, and just guys who are underdogs in a lot of cases. Between him and Jordan Goodwin now, the Suns actually have two players. Isaiah Todd, too, if you want to count him, although I think he has a longer way to go than the other two. But, just having guys who are 23, 24 years old even that you could maybe develop, it's been a while for us. It's legitimately been a while. Big thing, it's obvious, but you mentioned it. If Camara can't shoot, then he's not going to be an NBA player ever. Yeah. He
has to have at least one NBA skill offensively. It doesn't necessarily have to be shooting, but that's the best path.
Well, I like the fact that he's already an offensive rebounder. He's already a good offensive rebounder at his size. He was stocky in college. He's not going to be stocky for an NBA player. I think he's got a more standard, what you think of as the modern NBA 4 frame.
Wing, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like a wing who can play power forward. But he grabbed a good amount of offensive rebounds in college. His three-point percentage, he spent 2 years at Georgia and then moved to 2 years at Dayton. And here are his three-point percentages by year. Never took a ton of volume, but went from 17% to 26 to 34 to finally 36 as a senior. So you saw consistent improvement from him all 4 years at college. I think that's a positive sign. Maybe made a lot of open threes in his workouts. I really have no idea. But we're not expecting him to be a volume shooter here, but can he make stand still, open, catch and shoot threes? That's going to be the critical question.
I can't wait to watch him. We get someone to watch in Summer League at the very
yes,
least, right?
Someone to watch in Summer League is so and
I
also
love
the Suns,
summer basketball.
The Suns obviously have two-way spots. They have not filled either of those two-way spots because, let's be honest, they got to prioritize the roster right now. They have so many holes that's just not a priority. But I do believe who ends up playing well in Summer League will have kind of a heavy sway in determining who they hand those two-way spots to. So it'll be interesting tracking Summer League just because we've got some guys who maybe can actually contribute on the roster a little bit. Not to the extent of some other teams that are like, OKC or whatever, those teams that are drafting in the lottery every year, but we might have something to watch for out of Summer League. I forget which year it was. Was it last season? Who did we have in Summer League? Was it only Ish? And then it was like...
Yeah.
And then was that when we had like Paris Bass and all that
yeah,
stuff? Or
yeah,
am I
did it on,
or no, Paris Bass was a COVID guy. Who was... that was last year we had like Olivier Sarr.
Yes, that's right.
As like a star of our Summer League. So we've had a couple years in a row for the Suns of just, it's been kind of depressing. It's been like Ish Wainwright on our Summer League team and then just absolutely no one.
28-year-old Ish Wainwright setting screens only
and then
in Summer League. Yeah.
And it's like even as Ish is for all of his NBA skills, if you will, not capable of being the first option, even on a
He's
Summer
not
League
fun to
team.
watch at Summer League. Yeah, he knows his role.
That's just not what he is. I don't think Kamara is going to be out here averaging 20 and 10 at Summer League either.
No.
I'm going to be honest. But just the fact that we're going to have someone to watch who we're
He's lock down Wemby. Yeah,
we're
lock down
investing
Wemby.
into our future. And I am thrilled, folks. I am thrilled with this pick.
There is this awkward time of the NBA calendar, sort of between the draft and free agency. We have sort of slop season before the draft, and we have the draft, and then we have where trades begin, and then free agency where trades and free agency signings continue. Then we have optimism season after that, when the teams are set and everyone's sort of talking themselves into OKC making the finals, or like whatever you want when it comes to optimism season. Then we have this weird week in between. I guess we could call it sloptimism season. It's something somebody suggested online, where it's just this weird time of year where lots of weird things are happening and so many reports and smoke screens and stuff is happening, and we don't really know what it is. But the next thing that happens for us is free agency. It's Saturday. It's when free agency starts, Sam. And
crazy.
It was announced today by Chris Haynes that the Suns are having a free agency workout, something I've never heard of before, where they're bringing in unsigned players that appear to be on the fringes of the NBA to work them out to see if they can sign them on the Suns. Justice Winslow, Jabari Parker, Chase and Randall were the three players that he mentioned, and that's the first free agency news that we got out of the Suns. I'm not even sure how legal it is to announce that before free agency, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's legal in this case because I think they're only working out guys who are not on NBA contracts. So if they were working out, say, and he would never do this, right? But this is a difference. If they were working out Fred VanVleet, who is a Toronto Raptor until July 1st, that's illegal. But because Stanley Johnson, Jabari Parker, Chase and Randall are out of the league right now, it's not an issue. It is a little weird, though, and it's indicative of where the Suns currently are, because this is the type of thing that you usually see either in, like, March, when you're working at, like, you're seeing if maybe you can get a buyout candidate, or just, like, someone who's a free agent out there for your playoff roster, or you'll see it in, like, August, where it's, like, kind of the most desperate guys who are, like, please just let me get on an NBA roster somehow.
Yes, exactly.
You don't typically see it before free agency starts, and it kind of shows where the Suns are I'm praying. We're going to cover it all. I'll tell you guys right now, we're going to do another main feed podcast, I think this week, right, Mike, where we kind of do a little bit of a free agent primer.
That's why I brought it up. Yeah, I think we're not covering free agency now. I know the next thing that happens is free agency. So listen to this one. Enjoy Joe House next, and then we'll be back later this week with the free agency preview. Suns don't have a lot of cap space, so we're not prioritizing free agency coverage just yet, but we will preview free agency and throw out some names that, a lot of them have been mentioned, but you'll get a chance to hear what Sam and I think about them later this week.
But so for that reason, it's like, they're working out Stanley Johnson, Jabari Parker. I believe those guys maybe could come in and make an impact as regular season, like 10th men or whatever,
sure.
But under no circumstances should they be, even in a world where you only have minimum contracts, the main signing. Like there are going to be guys who played meaningful NBA minutes last season who are currently under contract like until July 1st and are becoming free agents, who the Suns will be eligible to sign in July and who will be better than the players that they're working out this week. So those are the main guys. Those are the types of guys we'll be talking about in our pod later this week. Don't get excited about any of the names again, because we're only targeting minimum contract players. That's all the Suns will have access to, but we'll do our best to evaluate some skill sets, I think, in that episode, and just talk about, basically finding 3-and-D players for the most part, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just guys
Kevin
who can
Love,
maybe fit.
But I think maybe
we'll be playing Moneyball. Moneyball, which is
exactly.
kind of fun. It's like, what can he do? He gets on base. He's a big who shoots threes. He's just finding guys and optimizing their roles.
Hearing that list of names was the best case to try to trade DeAndre Ayton for some level of depth that we've heard in a while, because they're just not that exciting. But yes, coming up next after the break, Joe House of The Ringer joins us to talk about Bradley Beal. We've already recorded it. It was super fun. So take a listen and let us know what you think. And we'll be back later this week with free agency coverage. Thanks, everyone. All right, very excited about this. Joining us from The Ringer, Fairway Rollin' and The Ringer Gambling Podcast is Mr. Joe House. Joe House, how are you doing?
Fellas, great to be with you. What a time to be alive in Phoenix.
It's a very exciting time in Phoenix, but I do have to flip it on you just to start with, because I am interested in this. As, I don't know, maybe the most famous Washington Wizards fan there is, House.
No,
how are you feeling
Wolf
about the
Blitzer
Wizards
is out
right
there? People know Wolf Blitzer. Luke
How are you
Russer,
feeling?
there are more. I'm honestly feeling fantastic. I'm feeling great. I've been waiting for this rebuild for a number of years. We were advocating loudly on every platform that anybody would permit me onto for the Wizards to trade Brad Beal in advance of this Supermax extension. And there were different points in the timeline over the past couple of years where it seemed like the return could have been pretty meaningful. But, for whatever reason, the combination of ownership here in Washington in the form of Ted Leonsis and his brain trust, plus Tommy Shepard, the decision was made to chase play-in games, that the ceiling for the Wizards franchise after Russell Westbrook, who dragged, a pretty mediocre team by force of will into the playoffs in 2021. You'll never get me to say a bad thing about Russell Westbrook after watching him through, again, just sheer tenacity and a refusal to accept mediocrity, dragged a pretty mediocre team that included Brad Beal into the playoffs in 2021. But for whatever reason, the brain trust here in Washington, like, hey, we love that free playoff money. And there's an extra playoff money if we do the play-in game when we get to host it. So let's try that. They missed the play-in game both of the past two seasons, in no small part because Bradley Beal has missed 90 games in the last two seasons. So it has been overdue to hit the reset, hit the rebuild, and let's just go for it. And it's also exciting to me because I feel like we are entering some wild, wild west territory with respect to the new collective bargaining agreement and what the opportunities are going to be and what's going to become the most meaningful currency in the NBA. And by that, I mean, historically, draft picks have been the thing that folks have gone after. It's why Utah and Oklahoma City seem to be sitting so beautifully in terms of team building and their options. But under this new collective bargaining agreement, I think the teams that have cap room are also going to be in a really interesting spot to be able to build back perhaps quicker than under the previous CBA regime.
Yeah, as long as you're willing to bear that brunt for a few years, right? Because it's going to be tough. I wanted to ask you, I feel like for the most part, you got exactly what you wanted out of these two trades, the Beal trade, the Porzingis trade, just expiring contracts, picks, whatever. You didn't need necessarily assets in terms of like playable good players right now. Have you warmed up at all, though, to the Jordan Poole experience? Because I heard you a couple weeks ago that you did not want Jordan Poole on the Wizards. Have you warmed up?
Well, here's the thing. And in the context in which I was making those comments with the podfather, Bill Simmons, I did not think that it made any sense to be taking back in exchange for the moves that Washington might be making young, overpaid players. And I think Jordan Poole fits that construct. I think Tyler Hero fits that construct. I think Zach LaVine fits that construct. I think Karl Anthony Towns. There are about 6 players out there Probably Trey. I think Trey is grossly overpaid.
DeAndre Ayton too, by the way, if we could still push him on you.
Well, you guys, come on. We're going to have a conversation about DA. I'm actually interested in your thoughts, but the Jordan Poole thing, this is how I've come to think of it and understand it. They basically ultimately swapped Kristaps Porzingis for Jordan Poole because the salaries are almost a perfect match. And if you are in the position of the Washington team, which is harvesting assets and trying to help some players rehabilitate maybe, or get the opportunity to shine bright, like Tyus Jones as a starting point guard, I think might be a revelation to some folks in the league, and that could be an asset come, trade deadline. But if you think about it from Washington's perspective with respect to Jordan Poole, if what you're weighing is between Kristaps Porzingis and Jordan Poole, what's more likely going to fetch better assets for me? I think the answer has to be Jordan Poole because of the injury risk. You cannot, in this expiring contract year of Kristaps Porzingis, risk the possibility that he gets hurt in the first 20 games, and that's it. He is no longer an asset. All he is an expiring contract. With Poole, who's making basically the same amount of money, because they've traded for him so early in the season here, in the period, they could flip him at the trade deadline, and maybe they'll decide to hold on to him, and maybe he'll be an interesting piece going forward. He is a pretty impressive scorer, and he did shoot 50% from the field when he was a starter last year. Obviously, the playoff numbers were a bummer for him, but change of scenery, who knows? But in strictly weighing, what's going to fetch us a better return, Kristaps Porzingis in this expiring contract year, or Jordan Poole making the same amount of money, who's far less likely to get hurt and is 3 or 4 years younger, then rolling the dice with Poole makes sense to me under that kind of construct.
Did you ever find yourself picturing Chris Paul in a Wizards jersey at all, or was it the prospect of winning too many regular season games enough to sort of back you off of that proposition? Did you always think he was gone?
Yeah, and in fact, in the threads with pals, I promised that I am going to go, and I really am going to do this, get a Wizards jersey with CP3 on the back of it and wear it to some games, because got a shout out to the OG. I mean, he was a Wizard for a minute, so we'll pour a little out, and I never thought for 1 second that he would end up in Washington. It's kind of disrespectful to CP3. Shouldn't he have a say in his ultimate landing place, and shouldn't it be a competitive situation? Tons of questions about Golden State, but it's a different animal.
It's certainly going to be a competitive situation for him. I don't know what he thinks about it still. I don't know that he's come out and said anything other than like obvious public facing stuff about the Golden State situation. Tons of questions there.
I wonder if there's yet another move. I wonder if ultimately, from the Warriors' perspective, the most important thing was to get that Poole contract out of their cap situation,
right?
So that they can bring back Draymond, and they'll negotiate some kind of arrangement with Clay, run that thing back, and just have the Poole contract piece out of the picture. Because CP3, in terms of the basketball aspect of it, it's tough to make sense out of it, and lots of the smart basketball people have all weighed in on that. I still think ultimately, we did have just a handful of years ago a lot of questions around whether CP3 and James Harden could coexist.
Yeah,
and that was pretty good for a little while there. They sure could coexist for a couple seasons. But ultimately, it might make more sense for CP3 to go to a different kind of contender, and for Golden State to look for a more complementary player in like the mid-level market game place.
I know you can't trust anything the Warriors say, because the first thing Mike Dunleavy Jr. said when he took his GM job is he planned on keeping Jordan Poole for 4 years.
Right.
So we can go ahead and write off anything they say about Chris Paul potentially staying on that team, because you just never know. And you can't trust anybody, what anybody says. this time of year when it comes to leaks from the team. But let's get to Bradley Beal. So I find it interesting to talk to a Wizards fan, of course, about the Bradley Beal experience, because in some ways he was so loyal to DC when you think about it, because those teams were at times competitive, but never really reaching the top of the Eastern Conference or like a real contender status. But in some ways, the death knell was signing that contract with the no trade clause where he could find his way out in whatever way he wanted. So for you, when you look back on the Bradley Beal experience, ups and downs, injured
11
seasons,
years,
a long
over
time,
a decade of your life.
Yeah,
such a long time.
What do you think about it looking back now?
Well, let's start with Brad Beal, the guy. And in this respect, it's very, very easy. It's uncomplicated. He's a terrific dude. Everybody that he comes into contact with, the community works, his engagement with the community, his generosity in within the community. He just made a tremendous impact. And I think in no small part, that aspect of him being a good guy and being reliable, predictable, consistent in terms of, what kind of professional he was helped by having John Wall as a foil. Now, John Wall went through a series of unfortunate injuries, also, had some lost some anchors in his family, his mom most prominently, and he engaged in some self-defeating behavior. And that self-defeating behavior is what got him traded. So from the Wizards' perspective, and this is me as an outsider, just looking in and watching how this dynamic played out, I think the Wizards, chose to reward Brad Beal for just being a guy they could trust, being a very good representative of the franchise, being, a good pillar of the community. None of those things have anything to do with his basketball talent.
Right.
And I've been, on a whole variety of different platforms calling him Beta Beal for a long time. And, mostly because it's kind of apparent that his best use as a basketball dude, his best function comes in a second banana kind of role, or maybe in this Phoenix construct, a third banana kind of role. Gamma Beal might be a badass. I mean, I might be on a Gamma Beal jersey, Phoenix 3, but his Players Tribune piece that went up, I think today, it's very indicative and reflective of what kind of person he is and his standing in the community. Basketball wise, I don't love it. And he has been producing what, can charitably be regarded as diminishing returns over the past couple seasons. Now, for sure, it's the case that injuries have played a role in that. He did early in his career have an injury problem. For kind of the middle of his career, he only missed 5 games. But the last couple of seasons have been disappointing, and certainly, the fate of the franchise, this reset, rebuild moment that we're in right now. If the Wizards had made the play-in and the first round of the playoffs each of the past 2 seasons, Tommy Shepard would still be the GM of this bogus team, and we would be chugging along, catching 8 seeds anywhere we could. But his injuries the past 2 seasons really, really, really diminished the likelihood of the outcomes there, and that's why, thank God, we're in this moment. But basketball wise, you can look at some of the deeper analytics. He was a better 3-point shooter 5 years ago, both in the catch and shoot posture and in self-created threes. He has slowly been swapping threes for long twos, the most inefficient shot in basketball. He has gotten to the free throw line less and less. And one of the things I think you guys might find now, it'll be interesting to see. I do trust Vogel quite a bit. I think he's a great coach, and offensively, the one ball theory is the one. There's only one ball to roll out amongst those three guys, and whatever you do with Ayton, who definitely needs touches, if he's still on the team come October. But for Beal, he can get to the rim. It is in his DNA. He doesn't get as many foul calls as he thinks he should get, and as a fan of the team, I thought he should get. So I don't want to sugarcoat it. The opportunity that's in front of him should produce the best version of him. And I imagine that he will show up in tremendous shape. There's never been a question about work ethic or, any commitment to the profession. It's just the ability to stay healthy. And, he's had injuries to like 6 different body parts over the last handful of years. So that part of it can be concerning, especially with the injury history of KD, who's missed, over 40% of regular season, for the past 3 or 4 seasons. And even Book. I mean, Book, how many games did Book miss last year? 20?
Yeah, quite
Something
a few.
like that. Yeah, more than 20, I think.
More than 20.
Yeah, and then was hurt in the final game of the Nuggets series as well.
To be honest, there are so many similarities that I see between the two of them. And I know they've kind of been thrown in the same tier like for years. It's been the same guys that we talk about when we talk best shooting guards in the league. It's always those two, and Donovan Mitchell and Zach LaVine, and everyone just Clay, sure. Everyone mentions the same names. But Beal and Booker in particular, like hearing you talk about the shot profile right there, House, I just feel like I see so much in his game that is familiar to us from having watched Booker for the past 8 years. The preference for long twos, the fact that Booker can get to the rim at will sometimes, but doesn't always choose to. It's just not his preferred. It's not his bread and butter in his game. It doesn't mean that he has bad percentages at the rim. It's just he prefers to rise up in the mid range. The fact that both guys can hit catch and shoot threes, but haven't always been empowered or given the pieces around them to do it. I think obviously, as you mentioned, percentages might be down for Bradley Beal over the past couple of years, both his catch and shoots and pull-ups, but so much of the ratio, he's taking so many more pull-up threes over the past couple of years. And I feel like if you can swing that back towards a healthier balance of just taking a lot more catch and shoots, playing off of Booker and KD, his 3-point percentage is hopefully, this is what I'm hoping, is going to go back up a little bit this season. So the two are so similar, and that it makes me a little more optimistic for the pairing, that I feel like they're both so versatile, but it doesn't mean that they don't both struggle from a little bit of the same thing, even down to the injuries that you're talking about. I know Beal's had some issues with his hamstring. It's the exact same injury that Booker has had and has aggravated like 2 or 3 times over the past couple of years. So obviously injuries could slow this whole thing down.
Yeah, and the glass half full version of this is those 3 guys together take enough pressure off of each of them to produce a version of them that can be competitive and healthy, because both a combination of like the psychological load plus the physical load, it should be shared enough amongst the 3. If you're sitting in Matt Ishbia's office, this is what they definitely told him.
He told them, yeah.
The sum of the parts being greater. And one interesting thing for sure for Beal, and I always wondered why Washington wasn't more committed to this, is exploring him as a point guard, in the sense that he could be perfectly fine bringing the ball up and distributing, and then finding open spots. I know Book played a ton of that role for Phoenix, with CP3 being out for the last third of the season, whatever it was that he missed, last quarter of the season. And so that could be shared responsibility between Booker and Beal, but his handle is good. It is not a Jaylen Brown handle. You don't have to worry about forcing him to the left and him having 8 turnovers.
Well, I mean, He might have to, I think, because I think the likelihood of the Suns not playing a traditional point guard is high. You know, Booker just averaged 6.8 assists per game just a few seasons ago. And just to put some numbers on that, both Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, their catch and shoot 3-pointers for both of those guys went up when KD joined the team. Durant had very few catch and shoot 3-pointers on the Nets, and it went up on a per game basis once he got to the Suns. Beal just this last season shot 40% on catch and shoot threes. But to your point guard point about Bradley Beal, this was the thing I think that really caught my eye when I was looking at some of his stats. Devin Booker drive per games, 12.8 drives per game last season, the most on the Suns and an increase on the previous season. Durant drives per game on the Nets, 9.5 drives per game. So relatively low, especially for a player with the usage rate that he has preferred to shoot long shots because they're like layups for him.
Yes.
But when he got to the Suns, only 5.5 per game, partially because DeAndre Ayton is in the paint and partially because the Suns didn't have shooters on the outside. So the third guy was always in the paint.
Is that playoffs or was that the 8-game sample?
That's the 8-game sample size from the regular season. Excellent point.
Yeah. There's so much we don't know about KD still.
Exactly. But Beal on the Wizards, a team with, not the greatest shooting altogether, 15.9 drives per game. So of all the players last season, Beal actually averaged the most drives per game. And I did notice the free throw dip. He topped out at 8 free throws per game, Brad Beal, just a few seasons ago, which is a pretty crazy amount for a player like him. But if he's the player who's driving the most on this team and the defense collapses and he has Booker and Durant on the other end of that, or if DeAndre Ayton's still here, DeAndre Ayton rolling to the rim, in some ways, even when the ball swings to him and he's the one attacking a closeout, he's going to be likely creating for others quite a bit on this team. The distribution of assists between those three guys is going to be fascinating because I'm not really sure what it's going to look like. By the way, the last time the Suns had a player who drove more than 15.9 drives per game was Eric Bledsoe.
I was going to guess
in
him.
16-17. That's how long ago it was. So it's been a while since the Suns have had a player because Chris Paul couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's 38 years old
and doesn't shoot layups. Yeah,
no, I mean, I love CP3, so you can't crush him. He played the best version of himself. But yeah, those numbers really bear out what the eye test kind of produced with respect to Beal. You guys could be in for a real treat. The single biggest challenge for sure is the health. You can't have a scenario where Kevin Durant is warming up before a game and twists his ankle and has to be out for 3.5 weeks.
I'm triggered. Yeah,
I understand. But I mean, so the really interesting thing, and I have said this on the Ringer Gambling podcast, East Coast Bias Boys shout, and maybe on Simmons as well. And part of this obviously is looking for an opportunity to mess with Eddie Johnson.
Okay.
I definitely am betting the under for the Suns. Whatever their win total gets published at up front, I'm betting the under. And
have you had the pleasure of being called a water boy by Eddie Johnson yet?
Of course, yes. Just last season.
Or a robot. Those are the two go-tos for him.
Oh, I was definitely a water boy. I should have saved the tweet. I'll have to go back and dig it out. Shortly after our the annual win total podcast that Simmons and Russillo and I have been doing the last handful of years, and I've been doing it with Bill even longer than that. Shortly after the 2022 iteration, Eddie was out there telling the water boy to take it down a notch, and he was celebrating in the first couple months when Phoenix got off to the hot start. But I think that this team, the best use of this team, and obviously huge open question with respect to what they do with Ayton, but if you want this team to be playoff ready, in a position to make that deep playoff run, you have to load manage. And I don't think you load manage in a way that the Clippers did. That was highly unsatisfactory, and
didn't work.
It just flat out didn't work.
Yeah.
But you have to let these guys try and find some chemistry. So early in the season, I would expect, Beal, I would expect to see a ton, assuming all three enter the season healthy. I'm going to knock on wood, both for you guys and for me as a basketball fan, because I want to see this. I want to see how this thing plays out. But I would expect to see them try and build chemistry early and then look for selective ways to rest one of the three guys, and they can rotate who rests, but they have to have rest. They have to the only possible way to really make the kind of run that they're hoping for and imagining is for those three guys to be in the best shape possible come April.
I mean, there's no doubt none of those three guys is going to play 82 games this season.
Nope.
I've said on this pod, like, if you get 65 out of all three, to me, that's a win. And you just scrap in the other 17 games. You hope that you always have two guys available at least and try and find your way to enough wins. You're not shooting necessarily for the 1 seed in the Western Conference just based on health and availability. You're just shooting for home court advantage. But it puts Beal in particular in this awkward position because he's going to have to be the glue who holds it all together on offense. So what I mean by that is he is sometimes going to have these games where either KD or Booker is out, or maybe even both of them are out, or he's playing heavy minutes. Even if all three of them are in the game, he could be playing heavy minutes in a staggered role, leading bench lineups where he's like the Jordan Poole kind of all of a sudden. And he has to take over the game. Whereas other games, he'll be the total third option. Yeah,
that'll be a comfortable place.
Yeah,
whatever the bench for Phoenix looks like. Look at the Wizards roster the last couple of years.
Yeah,
and
no, I mean that's the archetype of what he is. Totally. By the way, I wanted to ask you too, real quick. You a Jordan Goodwin guy? Is that?
Oh
something?
My God, yes. I honestly, okay. I'm pissed. I don't know why. As a throw into this thing, I'm disappointed now.
I think it was the cash. They gave him $3.5 million.
He deserved it. He's good. You're gonna see. He's gonna get real minutes for the Suns. I have cast blind trust, a real leap of faith in the Michael Winger, Will Dawkins, Travis Schlenk. I need to come up with a nickname for him. I've been calling them WD Schlenky, but I don't think people don't get WD. Do people still use WD-40? I don't know.
Of course. So. It's classic. It's what you reach for first.
We're spraying those three guys on the rusty-ass Wizards franchise and trying to get some lubrication towards some wins, fellas. But I because of my blind faith and the blind trust, leap of faith in those guys. If they say that Jordan had to go, then Jordan had to go. I'm disappointed though. He can play.
What you said you're gonna bet the under. I think it's fair because the other thing with the Suns is they rushed Devin Booker back from an injury last year to get him in the Christmas Day game, and he just re-aggravated it, and they held him out for longer. And I think they learned a lesson there where they're not going to rush anyone back anymore. What would it take for you to shift that thinking? Like, for example, we've referenced DeAndre Ayton multiple times. A DeAndre Ayton trade for multiple defensive 3-and-D guys, or are there specific signings in free agency that would make you feel more comfortable, being that the Suns really only have minimum deals? That's probably not the case. I guess it hinges more on Ayton. Like, what would it take for you to feel better about the Suns?
I don't have a good answer because the profile of what I think the Suns could use most is not available in the upcoming free agent market. The free agent class for this that we're going to see this summer doesn't have anybody in it that I think would meaningfully move the needle. You know who would be tremendous and would change my thinking on this? Mikal Bridges. That's who.
Yep. We tried.
We tried.
Get it. We tried to send Ayton instead, and it didn't.
Yeah.
The Nets weren't interested, so I definitely understand that from that perspective. I know you started this before we started recording. You said you had some questions for us, and we're about rounding out to about half an hour. So I want to give you the opportunity to ask us questions if you still have those.
Is the DeAndre? I have many questions. Are you kidding? I intend to gamble on the Suns, so I really want as much information as possible here. The DeAndre Ayton Monty Williams relationship, is that can we if we look at the ceiling for DeAndre Ayton, do we say that there are many levels left for him to achieve, and that because of that poisonous relationship he was never going to get there with Monty? Is that reasonable, or is there other aspects to DeAndre?
Oh, God.
Is he a guy who we worry just may never get it.
I mean, yeah, that's the $1 million. It's the $30 million question, right? Like so many people fall on one side or the other. I think we kind of fall on the side of thinking he may never get it. I don't want to speak for Mike too much.
Well, let me say this. He came into the NBA as an excellent finisher at the rim who likes to shoot mid-range shots, couldn't dribble, couldn't pass. 5 years later, he's an excellent finisher at the rim who likes to shoot mid-range shots, can't dribble, can't pass. So the extent to which his offensive game has grown is basically it hasn't. It's almost essentially the same. And a lot of people believe the best way to get his best defensive play is to give him touches offensively. And this team doesn't have a lot of touches to go around. So I struggle to think of a way for him to be fully maximized on this team defensively if they're not going to be able to give him all the touches that he needs to be successful offensively. And by saying that, I tend to question the reports that the Suns plan on keeping him around. I think more than anything else, at least for the long term, if DeAndre Ayton was on the Suns in the playoffs, I'd be pretty surprised at this point.
Well, let me ask this, because you just mentioned something that kind of rung a bell. Let me ask both of you guys, Mike and Sam. Is it possible that DeAndre Ayton is being overlooked, that he's the secret weapon to this, scheme where if you're looking to protect minutes and looking to protect guys with injury history,
right?
And he's pretty, he's pretty durable so far, right? I mean, other than the one bit that he was out at the very beginning of his career.
He is pretty durable. Yeah, for sure. The issue is they've tried to run minutes in the past. Like they tried to do this thing where they would take Booker off the floor. And this was even before the KD trade. And they would run bench lineups led by Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. And the idea was you kind of got a Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton pick and roll as the center of your offense and just bench players around there. And let's see how it works. And the net ratings were really bad. I mean, it's kind of just what Mike was talking about. It's like he's got one or two skills on offense. His hook shot is money. It's maybe the best hook shot for a center in the NBA. It's so old school and so great. But he can't dribble. He doesn't dribble the basketball.
No Chris Paul, I think, feeding him the easy ones.
It's just so hard to plan around that.
I hope you're right, House, by the way. I'll just say that because that would be great if you're right about that.
Yeah, if the strategy, if what's called for is getting him touches at the beginning of games to get him enlisted, get him engaged, get him ready to make a defensive commitment, and this will be an area that I think Vogel for sure. Vogel's arrived on this scene, and the reason that he got the job over who was the rumored guy, Mike. There was a guy that was supposed to be the
Kevin
coach.
Young.
Kevin Young.
Oh, he's amazing. The highest paid assistant
who stayed on.
Yeah,
their assistant.
What a turn of events. Yeah. But I wonder if Vogel made some kind of pitch to the brain trust. Is I know exactly how to unlock DeAndre Ayton defensively, and what we've seen, because this is obviously one of the gigantic question marks. We just witnessed it in the Denver series. How is this team going to stop anybody? They can win games by outscoring plenty of teams, and that's fine during the regular season, no problem whatsoever. But you need stops in the playoffs, and what's that going to be? You can't ask Devin Booker to be the ultimate two-way player. You can't ask him to go guard the other team's best wing player and get the offensive performance. I don't think. I mean, maybe
it'd be surprising. It'd be surprising.
He played the best defense of his career in the playoffs, and it would still be completely unreasonable to ask him to do that. It's just he can do it in spurts. He can't. That can't be his role.
But House, let me just say this: Ayton got benched for Jock Landale in the playoffs because he couldn't play defense. So it's hard to picture a scenario where that happens, but if Vogel can figure out how to unlock somebody that Monty Williams couldn't figure out, and who's honestly, DeAndre Ayton has had the same problems since college with effort and energy, maybe Vogel should be paid more if that's what he can figure out, because that is an enigma that Sam and I have been debating the entire time that we've been doing this podcast. So I hope that's the case if he ends up staying. But I still personally just doubt that's a long-term goal with this team, especially just based on what we know about James Jones, who was not the general manager who picked DeAndre Ayton to begin with. I just have a feeling it's not his favorite.
Yeah. Well, you guys warned me ahead of time not to piss off the beloved, the Phoenix fans and get on the wrong side of their passion. So I'm trying to glass half full this. I think he's gone. I can't come up with a scenario where it makes sense to keep him. He needs to turn into that salary needs to turn into, two or three players. Two would be fine. And you need somebody.
Two or three players, no, just per se, like say a Tyus Jones and a Daniel Gafford. Any thoughts on?
No more deals. What do we get back in return? How's that help with the Wiz? You got the best.
Feed him touches,
your franchise
trade him.
Center to build around.
You got your Father's Day present. That was the Bartlesteins, doing Father's Day stuff.
I got one more thing for you, House, before we let you go here. I heard you on the Bill Simmons podcast besmirching the name of Devin Booker in Bill Simmons' top 75 players or whatever he listed him as, and I just want to sell you on maybe that you're underrating Devin Booker just a little bit when you talked about him on that podcast. Just last season, Devin Booker averaged 33 points and 7 assists in 11 games in the playoffs. You know how many players have averaged that many points and assists in at least 10 playoff games?
Not very many.
3 players: LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and Devin Booker. I just want to throw that at you. This is the first time we saw him next to a superstar, because you compared him to Jamal Murray, who has Nikola Jokic. This is the first time we've seen Devin Booker next to a superstar. I think his numbers next season, next to 2 great offensive players, are going to be totally juiced, and I'm excited to see it.
To be fair, that whole bit was to make sure that we gave Jamal Murray the flowers that he deserved.
That's fair. He earned it.
Yeah, that was all. I mean, because in the early portion of the playoffs, there was very well deserved love for Devin Booker.
Bill loves him now. He really does.
He does.
Yeah,
we've come so far.
Too.
We've sold him. We changed Bill Simmons, his whole opinion on Devin Booker over the years. House, I mean this genuinely. You're one of my favorite podcast listens. I love listening to. I don't even watch golf, and I occasionally listen to your golf podcast to enjoy.
Well, I'm sorry, but thank you for saying so.
I love you when you're on the Bill Simmons podcast, and we appreciate you joining. I mean, I know that I listed some podcasts, but feel free to list everything that you're on and plug it for people listening to this one.
Oh, you guys are the best. Right now it is still golf season, so once a week we're up with the Fairway Rolling podcast, mainly trying to make sense out of this insane Live PGA Tour thing,
right.
But also mainly trying to put some money in people's pockets. We had some good picks last week. I had a little parlay that I think paid off for all the birdie buddies out there. And then right now it's only once a week, but as football season arrives, it'll be up to 3 times a week. The East Coast Bias Boys, that's myself, Raheem Palmer, and John Jaschemski, covering everything of interest in the gambling world. And don't sleep on the possibility of the House of Carbs making a little return in the food world. We've got a couple ideas up our sleeve, so as the year plays out, maybe for all the taste buds out there, we'll have some delectables for everybody to consume their ears and with their eyes. We'll see how it goes, fellas.
House, do you watch The Bear?
I do. I'm a big fan. And I've been saving the second season. I haven't even started yet.
So good. It's
okay,
so
good.
I look forward to your takes on The Bear, but thank you so much for joining us, Joe.
My pleasure, fellas. Anytime.